Hello and welcome back to the Sober Cruise. My name is Martin, and as always, I'm joined by Mark. Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, Martin. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, very good. We're recording this in July, so the sun is shining for both of us, which is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit too hot, but no, it's good.
Well, we're going to be talking about transatlantics, and we'll be covering the weather a bit later on about the transatlantic. Because one thing people worry about is what the weather's going to be like on the
Mm.
transatlantic. Are you going to be cooped up indoors all day? But you've been on, was it five now transatlantics?
I have, yes. I just came back from my fifth one at the middle of May. So I've done four solo transatlantics and one not solo transatlantic, and I have to say I really, really enjoy them. I think they're my cruise of choice. Given the choice between a transatlantic and one that's port intensive, I think I would now these days choose the transatlantic.
So tell us the reason why what made the first one different from a normal cruise for you?
So the first one I did was a 14 nighter. It was on the Norwegian NCL Joy, and it left Southampton and didn't call anywhere until it got to Miami 14 nights
Wow.
later. So
Nowhere at all. Okay.
that is a long time. And I guess I was had a little bit of trepidation before it started because it did seem like a long time with no stops. And I thought, and really, when I say to someone I'm going on a transatlantic cruise, there's this kind of fleeting look of horror crosses their face, and then they ask these questions, and the two questions are always the same. The first question is always, how many nights is it going to be at sea? And then the second question is always, are you not going to get bored?
Yeah.
And I suppose I was worried on the first one that I was going to get bored, but that just didn't happen, And really, the big thing for me on a transatlantic cruise is that you very quickly get into a routine. Um,
Yes.
and I think particularly for people in recovery, it's having a routine to your day is something really very nice. And on a cruise ship, there's usually something to do. So it's with port intensive cruises, although they are fantastic, and they can be a little bit stressful. That they it's a happy stress and it's a fun stress, but it's still stress. It's still this idea of every day you're waking up in this place that you've never been to before,
And you've got to
you
get back in time as well.
and you have to get back in time. There's always that little bit of fear of, will the boat leave without me? You're in a place where you don't know where anything is. You don't know how the public transport works. Um, you don't know how to get from the port to the center of the town. And of course, all of these things you work out pretty easily, but it kind of all adds up if you have a fun day, but it's a stressful day. And whereas on a transatlantic cruise, just that knowledge of tomorrow, I'm not getting off the ship, tomorrow is going to be the same as today, can be very relaxing.
It's very, very true. So walk me through what an actual day on board would be like. What would kind of your routine be like?
So I'll talk about the last cruise I was on, which was on the Scarlet Lady. Now that was going from Barcelona, no, sorry, from Miami to Barcelona. That's the one that just come off in May. And that because it's Virgin Voyages, it has a couple of advantages. And for me, one of the main advantages of Virgin Voyages is that all the exercise classes are free. So my day every day looked like this. I got up at 7 o'clock and went to a stretching class.
Just for everyone to know, you don't have to get up at
That is
7 if you
not
don't want to.
compulsory.
It's not compulsory whatsoever. As long as you're there by 7:15.
Yes, as for some people, they were going to bed at 7 o'clock, but I was getting up at 7 o'clock. So there would be a stretching class, then there would be a meditation class straight after that. Then after that, at 8 o'clock, then there's the Friends of LW, where sort of is code for AA, but um, basically people from any sort of 12-step fellowship would go along to that. So there'd usually be about 10 people. We'd have a chat, a cup of coffee, and the rest of the morning, just pottering about, reading on, getting a sunbed somewhere or a sofa, having a bit of a read. Lunch with somebody new every day. Then board games in the afternoon, a wee bit of a siesta, dinner with the other solo people, go and see a show or don't go and see a show, maybe have a little walk around the deck, and then the day's over, go to bed, and then do the same thing the next day. So there was plenty of time for relaxing, but there was pretty much always something to do. you know. So even with that, there were a lot of things I wasn't doing. I wasn't doing the quizzes. I wasn't doing the karaoke. You know, there's plenty to do.
We're all desperate to hear you do the karaoke.
I'm sure you are, but
What
that's
would
not
what
going
would
to
be
happen.
your karaoke song if you did do karaoke?
So my karaoke song is Danny Boy.
So yeah, so karaoke obviously is something you can do because I think people just have this impression that because some people just go there and they just lie by the pool all day because weather-wise, the times of year that you're going, the weather is usually pretty good. So, for example, Virgin Voyages is October and May that they do their transatlantics, and October going from Barcelona towards Miami is when we went on our one, we had I think one day where maybe a little bit of rain, maybe
Hmm.
slightly overcast, but the rest of the time it was sunny. It was it was t-shirt and maybe light jumper weather in the evening. It wasn't baking hot, like in the UK right now, but it was nice kind of weather. And on the way coming back as well from your one in May, was that
Yes, that was sunshine weather. That was lying out weather every day. Now we did also do one in March this year, and from Rome to Miami. And the weather was noticeably different. It was still very pleasant, but it wouldn't have been warm enough to lie out every day.
okay?
And of course, the other thing that people worry about is, are you going to get rough weather? Is the ship going to, you know, are the plates going to fall off the tables? And really, I don't think I've ever experienced a bad, you know, anything beyond a light rock. It's usually the size of these ships. They're just so big. The stabilizers are so good that normally it's very, you know, there's no problem with that at all.
The other thing is you could that they can because they're not necessarily going in a straight line. They got 14 days to get somewhere. Well, with the Virgin Voyages one's got 8 nights to go from part of Europe all the way to Miami or vice versa. Um, if there's a storm off to the left hand side, off to the port side, um, they just go a bit further to one side. They don't have to stick to a particular. It's not a road. So the captain of the ship once told me it's not a road. It's not a train track. We can go around these things if
That's
we
right.
need.
Yes. Yeah.
So if there's a
Although
storm off,
uh,
they
there
can
is, but I mean
they can
the
move. So
you do have to be a wee bit careful because I know the same time that I was going from Miami to Barcelona, there was another ship, another Virgin Voyages ship going from New York to Barcelona,
yes,
and apparently they had hellish weather. Apparently they was very very cold, very very windy. So
we are starting a lot further up in New York, especially. I mean, New York May sort of time should be okay, but yeah, coming down because I've done the transatlantic on the Queen Mary going across, and luckily it was sort of June, July, so the weather was okay. But I remember speaking to people and they said, yeah, if you do this in December, it's not good.
yes, yeah. So let's look a little bit at the logistics. So tell us a little bit about what is it that makes it a transatlantic cruise.
Well, transatlantic means it's traversing the Atlantic.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah.
I mean, they were originally called repositioning cruises. So these ones are where so, for example, Resilient Lady would do the summer season in Europe and then do the winter season in the Caribbean. So it's repositioning from one part of the world to the other. So from one home port. So generally, um, Virgin Voyages was sail out of Barcelona or Athens, occasionally out of what they're not doing anymore out of Portsmouth. After this year's the last time they're doing it, might do for 2028, who knows? Um, but it's changing the home port to somewhere else. So it's starting in one place and finishing in another, which is reasonably rare. Obviously, only happens generally twice a year um, with those ones. Um, from the logistics kind of point of view, is that you then have to then fly depending on where you're starting. So say you're starting in Barcelona and finishing in Miami, you fly out to Barcelona. Well, it's quite easy from the UK or from Europe or something like that, and then you need to then fly back from Miami back to wherever you live. So sometimes the good thing is there's now a few low cost airlines that do the Miami route back to so they go to Barcelona, for example, to Paris, UK. Sometimes it's cheaper to go up to Orlando. Depends also if you're going to stay over. as well. So some people just like to get off the cruise and fly straight back. If you want to stay for a bit longer, you know, if you're arriving into the States, you've got an ESTA, so you'll be able to stay for up to 90 days anyway. So it kind of so when I go over, I then tack on spending time in America. And then likewise, there's people from that do it the other way. They when the cruise starts in Barcelona and they're from America or from Canada, they start with a couple of nights, 4 or 5 nights in Barcelona, or maybe a bit more, and then go back, and then they go back out that way. So it's slightly more harder, I kind of say to plan because you're not starting and finishing in one place, but it's pretty easy to do, and that's kind of one of the things that we do as well. Is we can do it with flights if as well, or people can organize their own flights. You've got points and that kind of stuff that you want to use. So yeah, it's pretty much the logistics of a transatlantic.
And in terms of cost, what do they cost compared to a normal, say, med cruise?
Well, if you work it out per night, the cost per night is usually lower than a regular kind of mid cruise. It kind of depends if you were going the if you were picking the busiest med cruise, um, then that's always going to be a significant kind of difference in price. If you're picking one where which maybe isn't selling particularly well for whatever reason, it might be kind of similar in price. So there's no kind of hard or fast rule that a transatlantic is going to be X amount cheaper than Mediterranean cruise. When you look at the price per night, then you do kind of see that the price is kind of pretty low in comparison to doing a med cruise. Um, and the great thing about Virgin is there's so much included. So even when you're on board, you don't have to spend any money whatsoever.
Mm.
The Wi-Fi is included, soft drinks are included, drip filter tea and coffee, you know, UV filtered water, that kind of stuff. All your food's included. There's no, you know, once you're on board, because when you break it down per night, especially if I'm trying to think that the price that we've got for our for one of our well, we'll talk about that a bit later on about one of our transatlantics for two people sharing a cabin, it's less than £100 per person per night.
Mm.
Which is when you think about how much that is included in that. You know, just going if you went to our favorite restaurant, the Wake, if you went there and you did an equivalent version of that on land, you'd be paying what £40 a head at least, probably.
Mhm.
I would kind of guess. So when you then work out how much it is overall, it is really good value. But yeah, they do generally when you look at them, because obviously a Mediterranean, got waffling on a little bit, but when Mediterranean cruises tend to be 7, maybe 9 nights, whereas these are 14 nights. So the headline price might look the same, but when you then break it down per night, it is usually much cheaper than doing Mediterranean cruise.
Yeah, yeah, and I would have found that as well. What I would generally find is that the cost of a 2 week transatlantic cruise is roughly going to be the same as a 1 week around the Med. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
the biggest additional expense, as you say, is the transatlantic flight, one-way transatlantic flight, and the hotel before, just to make sure you're in there. But those are surprisingly good value. I think I've been looking at getting the flight back from Miami in October, and it's coming out at about £350, which I think is
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah.
One tip I think is that if you can, to go with just hand luggage. So what I would
Right.
generally do is is go with just hand luggage and then use the ship's laundry to have my clothes washed at the end of 1 week. Because generally that's a lot cheaper than putting a bag in a hold, and
Yes.
it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about your bag getting lost or. Uh,
It it does depend sometimes because the laundry like a bag of laundry on board, I think is $50 or something. But
Mm.
it's not just someone's throwing it into the wash and then giving you, they wash, press it, iron it, it comes back looking better than
it's all
look
folded
like it's
anyway.
brand
Yeah,
new and
yeah.
everything. So you're kind of getting a good service for that. You can also some people just drip dry, drip wash stuff in the
Of course. Yeah.
in the cabin. There is a little drying line that you can hang stuff up on. I wouldn't put it on the balcony. You just might fly off into the Atlantic.
But and I think one of the great mysteries of life is that when I'm packing for a cruise, I pack what I think I'm going to use, but I always end up coming back with clothes that I haven't worn.
Oh no, you never use hardly half the clothes. You think, oh, what about this? What about this? And you never end up. Oh, I need to say eight pairs of shoes. No, you don't. The heaviest clothes I go are the ones that I go with, in case it's a bit whatever. But no, you don't really need a huge amount of clothes, especially for if you are going to use the laundry. It is kind of quite a bit kind of cheap there. Or if you're going as a couple, just if you are when you are flying, just take one piece of luggage, hold luggage between you. You don't
Absolutely.
have to pay for two. Sometimes you can do. So we've done this before in the past when we book people. Is like British Airways would do an open jaw flight, so they a flight from London to Barcelona, and then from Miami back
Mm,
to London. So it's a strange thing that they do because it shouldn't work, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's no rhyme
yeah.
or reason.
Okay. So what about the crowds on the ship, Martin? Do these transatlantics generally sail full?
They're technically full, as in you can't book any more cabins, but generally what most cruise lines do is they use this time to refurbish the ships. So what they might do is they take X amount of cabins, say for example 100 cabins, they take those out of circulation, out of being sold, and then they will, you know, if they're changing, for example, the carpet. So when I was on Virgin Voyages a year ago, they were changing the carpet in all the cabins. So what they would do is they would change the carpet in however many of those cabins aren't being used. They would take those out of sale, and then they do refurbishments and things like that. The other thing is that because with the transatlantic, you need more entertainment than on a 7 night cruise. So they generally have slightly more people on board. And they put those into passenger cabins ago. So again, they take it out. So you also find there's a lot of solo travelers on them as well. So when last October, it was just over 300
Mm,
solo travelers on board. So out of about 2,200 ish people on board, 300 were traveling on their own as well. So um, it's I never really found them particularly busy. I don't know about you, but I never kind of found them overly busy because there's no rush to do anything. People don't rush, apart from maybe on the first night, everyone wants to get to a certain place. And it also tends to be people who have been on the ship before, a lot of them. So again, they're not rushed to do something because they know they've got 14 nights to do something and they've generally done it before as well.
yes. Yeah. And I think that's, yeah. So normally the ones I've been on, have found they've been sailing about sort of 85, 90% full. And but that 10 to 15% really does make a big difference. It does give the ship a lot more space. And as you say, that with the kind of tentpole shows, the big shows, whereas on a 7 night cruise, they'll only be running on one night. On the transatlantics, usually they're over 2 nights, usually 2 nights. And what you generally find is that if you go to the second show on the second night, there's no problem getting in.
Yeah.
Whereas on the first show, the first night, you're going to be queuing and you might not get a seat. But as you say, the point you made there about the solo passengers is a good one. Is that I was surprised at how many people are traveling solo, because it is a fear that people have about, am I going to meet people? But the irony is that if you're traveling solo, you end up meeting far more people than you do than if you're in a couple.
If you're in a couple, you spend a lot of the time in the as a couple,
Yeah.
and that. Although people do talk and they do kind of mingle and things like that, but you do find that it's the solos that have got the WhatsApp groups and they're meeting up and they're doing things together and they're going to the quizzes together, etc. Going to the fitness classes together. So they're the ones that actually seem to be doing more things. But until you step on board, until you've done it for yourself, it's kind of hard to kind of really kind of get that it is like that.
Yeah. And before we get beyond ourselves, I think, um, I would suggest that transatlantic cruises aren't for everybody.
Yep.
That, and I definitely wouldn't recommend somebody to go on their first cruise on a
No,
transatlantic cruise,
no.
because it's, if you're halfway across the Atlantic, it's not a great time to find out that you don't like cruising. Um, so somebody who's been on 4 or 5 cruising, but for people in recovery, I really would recommend it, because the time just hits a little bit differently once you're on a cruise. And I'm not sure whether it's because the lack of a mobile signal says that you're on your phone a little bit less. But that idea that there's no pressure to do anything, that you're basically just doing what you want to do, or not doing what you don't want to do, really is very, very helpful, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a routine which really helps. Um, Obviously, as much as there is a routine that you want to do or don't want to do. But yeah, I think that if you've never been on any other cruise before and you're worried about getting seasick or anything like that, then firstly try a short cruise to start with, like a 3 night
Yeah.
one out of Southampton. They do tend to be rockier to start with anyway, but if you can survive a 3 night cruise out of Southampton, you can, in the winter you could survive anything at sea. Is pretty much what I sort of say to people. And the other thing is, it is designed for people who want to switch off. So if you are someone who requires attention and stimulation 24/7, the transatlantic cruise probably isn't for you, because there are things to do, but it is more a calmer pace. If you need to, I mean, you've got, the great thing about Virgin is you get free Wi-Fi. Um, Now the Wi-Fi can obviously be patchy in the middle of the Atlantic. Wi-Fi is not always going to be able to work, and you might not be able to keep in contact with everyone. And if that's really important to them, maybe don't do the transatlantic. Um, but I think for most people who want to switch off and relax, think of it as if you went to Jamaica and you went into a resort in Jamaica and you spent the time in the resort. It's just that, the resort is moving from one place to another.
Yeah. Although, having said that about the Wi-Fi, one of the interesting things I've noticed is that one of the reasons that these cruises are getting busier is that you're getting quite a lot of digital nomads on the cruises. People who are coming along, like you, yes, people who are coming on because it's relatively inexpensive, and because of Starlink, that seems to be the game changer thing, that you have a reliable connection. And
Mm.
if you're willing to pay a little bit more for the premium service, you're getting certainly something fast enough to stream on. So a lot of people are coming on the cruises and working through the day, and then enjoying the cruise ship at night.
Yes, if you want to use things like Teams and Zoom, you need to pay extra for that, but just
You do.
because of about bandwidth that it takes up is unfair on everyone else. If you want things like WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, that kind of stuff, that's fine. That works okay. If you want WhatsApp calling, like video and like audio calling, that's fine as well. The video calling can sometimes work, sometimes not work. But if you do want the full at home work experience, work from anywhere kind of thing, then you will need to pay extra to have the upgraded Wi-Fi, which you can just add on when once you're booked. You just go onto the app and add it on. You can put it on for the whole duration, or if you say actually I just need it for one day that I need to work, then you can add it on for a day. It's not cheap, but then to be honest, you are in the middle of the Atlantic, so and you're trying to do something. You're trying to, and let's face it, uh, even 10 years ago, if you said to people that you could do a video call for work in the middle of the Atlantic, they'd go, "Are you on Star Trek or something like that? It's mad."
Yes, it
So,
is.
yeah.
Okay.
So cruise ships aren't exactly dry environments, are they? Literally and in the other sort of sense as well. So there's bars everywhere, drinks packages on certain cruise lines. They're very much trying to push the drinks packages towards you. So how would you kind of navigate that?
So again, on the transatlantic, the feel is very different. So what I've noticed is, if say you're going around the Caribbean for a week, or even the Med for a week, it is very much a party atmosphere. So it's kind of spring breaky. People drinking by the pool, and but it's not like that on a transatlantic, because you've got longer, and because the demographic tends to skew a little bit older, there's less drinking involved.
Mm.
Now, one of the things I've noticed about modern ships is that if you go back sort of 10 or 15 years, what you would notice about ships is that if you wanted to lie out in the sun, the only option that you had was the pool deck. So you would have the waiters going along. You would probably have a band playing music much too loud, or you would have the sexy legs competition or the line dancing. So it was very noisy, very, very boozy. But what I've noticed is on pretty much all the ships of the last 10, 15 years is that they now tend to have a second area. So they tend to have a promenade deck, usually deck 7 or deck 8, where you can walk around the side of the ship, and they'll have fewer sunbeds, but they'll have things like comfortable sofas, comfortable seats. They will have bars there, but they tend to be the bars attached to the restaurants. And the vibe there tends to be very, very different to the pool deck. It's very quiet, quite sedate. You'll find most people are there just, relaxing, reading. So I tend to find that if I go to that area rather than the pool area, it's almost as if you don't notice the bars. Um, I know we're plugging Virgin Voyages a little bit, but one of the great things about them is A, the soft drinks are free, so you can get that for nothing. You don't have to spend anything on that. But also the fact that they don't have a drinks package does seem to me to mean that people drink a lot less than they would on, say, something like NCL or Royal Caribbean. Whereas that sense of, well, I've paid for a drinks package, so I
Mm,
need to get my money's worth.
exactly. If you've paid $65 a day to get a drinks package, and you know that a drink costs $8, you're you're trying to drink X amount of drinks to break even, and to make a profit on it. Which is why the cruise lines that still have drinks packages have to put in limits. So I think it's 15 drinks, which is still enough. It's a lot of drinks. 15 drinks on most of them now. But again, the good thing about Virgin, you talk about Virgin, is there isn't any drinks packages. The drinks aren't cheap. They're not extortionate, but they're not kind of, you'd have to have, if you wanted to get drunk every day at $14 a cocktail, $15 a cocktail, you'd have to have serious amount of money. So that
Yeah.
it does mean people aren't drinking during the day as much. They're not drinking as much at night, because it does start, especially 14 nights, it does start to add up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And like certainly the first couple of cruises that I did when I got sober, and I was very aware of the bars and what other people are drinking. Whereas nowadays, I barely notice it. And one of the things I do notice is how few people you see drunk on a cruise ship.
Mm, yeah,
Um, it's you kind of my mindset would be, but it's free.
yeah.
Drink as much as you can. But actually, the vast majority of people don't. But the vast majority of people is it's just a few drinks in the afternoon, a few drinks with dinner. Yeah.
I think just the fact that sobriety is more commonly known and things like that, and that all these cruise lines do non-alcoholic drinks, they do mocktails, soft drinks, that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So there's a wide choice. So you don't feel that you don't have to have an alcoholic drink, which so people don't, especially with having like the soft drinks. For remember when we had one of our solo meetups, we were doing we were in one of the restaurants. And there was probably it was when we were in test kitchen, so it was probably about 15, 20 of us all on a long table, and I think maybe 2 people had alcohol and everyone else was
Mm.
just because the soft drinks are free.
Yeah.
So we're all thinking, "Why am I paying for a drink when I can have Coke Zero for free or a ginger ale or something like that?" I'm like, "What are
Yeah.
we doing?" And that so that I think that mentality, the fact that the soft drinks are included, if the soft drinks were paid for, I think that that would make a difference, and I think more people would go, "Well, if I'm paying for something, I might as well have alcohol." But I think the fact that the soft drinks are free, I think just encourages people to have more soft drinks.
Absolutely. I think you're
Um,
absolutely right there.
so you're mentioning about groups and then kind of meet up with groups. So tell us about some of the groups you've met up with.
So I suppose the two main ones are the solo groups are always good. So a lot of the cruise lines now focus on their solos. NCL certainly has a very strong program for solos, and Virgin. So Virgin would have a solo meetup in the morning, usually about 11 o'clock. But the thing that they did really, really well was the solo dinners, where you went at 5:45, you went to the grounds cafe, and you basically, the lady would say, I've got 6 seats here, I've got 7 seats here, and you just put your hand up, and went off with a group. And what people tend to find is that maybe the first 2 or 3 nights you're going with different people, but by the third night,
Yeah.
you kind of find your tribe, and then you tend to stick with them for the rest of the cruise. So that was really nice. The other thing that happened on my most recent transatlantic, which was fantastic, was that on, you mentioned earlier on the WhatsApp groups. And one of the WhatsApp groups was a gamers group. So on day two, somebody stuck a wee thing in the WhatsApp group. Anybody fancy a board game? And four of us arrived down, and it ended up from that day onwards, we just met in the same place at 2 o'clock every afternoon and played board games for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it was just fantastic. It was just it just gave you a focus for the day. And over that 14 days or that 12 days, you kind of get to know each other pretty well. You get to know people's stories, what their families are like at home, what their careers are, etc. Uh, so by the time it gets to the end, you do feel as if you've made some pretty solid friendships. You know, and I think that doesn't happen on a med cruise. The relationships on a med cruise are very
You
different.
don't have time.
You don't have time, um, but also because it's the feel of the demographics again, but also the fact that you're not off the ship.
Mm.
You do tend to get to know people better. And there was one little thing on the last one, was that there was a guy, one of the baristas was from the Philippines, uh, and every time I went past and he was on board, he would shout out, "Hi, Mark," and I
Oh,
would
that's
shout
great.
out, "Hi,
Yeah.
hi, Guy," and it just used to make me ridiculously pleased. It's just such a simple thing, but it was just so lovely to kind of just that idea that people know who you are. So yeah, the groups make it. And of course
Yeah.
then you've got your Bill W group. Um, so there's also whatever you're into, there will be a group. And WhatsApp has made that so much easier that people can keep in contact.
And we'll be talking momentarily about our group as well. So
We will.
stay tuned for that. But what's the one thing that you would want a newly sober person to know about a transatlantic cruise?
I think it would be that it's about time. It's about time acts a little bit differently when you've got 14 days with no commitments, no getting on land, nothing to do but just take the time to do the things that you enjoy, or take the time to not do anything at all. Um, and I think the thing we talked about earlier on was about the routine. That idea of, I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow that I did today. And it's very odd because by the first few days, it's, oh, this is what I'm doing, but by day four, day five, you're thinking, well, this is what my life is now.
Yeah.
so, and and then of course it comes to the end of the 14 days and you have to get back to real life. But there's just something very, very lovely about that idea of, it's 2 o'clock, I play games. It's midday, I go for lunch. It's 5:30, I go and meet the solos for the solo dinner. It's 7:30, I go to the show. Um, it's just great.
Yeah. It's a nice routine to get into, isn't it? It's a good routine.
So part of the reason we've done this episode, Martin, is to talk about the cruise that we're putting together for May of next year, the Transatlantic cruise. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So we've done we did a transatlantic cruise together ourselves last year, back in October 2025, which sounds like a long time ago. It wasn't actually that long ago. Um, and we were thinking what other kind of cruises we could do for the sober cruise. And for all the reasons we've discussed throughout the podcast, we thought that transatlantic is one of the kind of best kind of cruises um, for people to go on to. And one of the reasons we've chosen Virgin Voyages, again, a lot of the stuff we already talked about, is there isn't a drinking culture on board. It's not like certain other cruise lines where the drinking is the forward kind of thing. The soft drinks are free. The Wi-Fi is included. The fitness classes are included. These are things that a lot of the other cruise lines will charge for. Um, all the restaurants are included. So you want to have steak every single day, you can have steak every single day. Um, so that's why we've chosen Virgin Voyages. But the extra things that we'll be bringing on board. So you have your Bill W meetings every single morning. So just tell us a little bit more about what people can expect about being in the group with us.
Yeah, so we're going to keep it fairly light touch. So there will be the Bill W meetings, which aren't part of our group, but they are on board. And then the idea is that we would have a daily meetup. So that we would sort of say 3:30 to 4:30, we are going to be in this particular place. Anybody who wants to come along can come along. Anyone who doesn't have to. We would have maybe 3 or 4 group dinners, for the whole group through the trip. And if there are any ports of call, we would organise 1 or 2 excursions at the ports of call. But the idea is basically you can join in as little or as much as you want. So on top of that, for example, we will have a WhatsApp group, and then what we would expect is that, for example, I know you're very keen on quizzes, so that you would kind
Yes.
of you would do the quiz, and then anyone who wanted to join you would do that, and then we could sort of have another WhatsApp group for the shows, so that any people could go together to see the shows. So it's not kind of compulsory fun. It's if you
Well, kind
choose
of fun that.
if you want to be part of the sober group every day for large parts of the day, that will be an option. But also, if you want to sort of say hi on the first day and then not be part of the group again until the last day, that's also an option.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, so the maximum we have is 25 people within the group. Because we've got the WhatsApp group beforehand, before we set sail, people get to know each other beforehand. So if you are going on solo, or even if you're going on as a couple, either as friends or whatever, it means that you already know people who are in the same, excuse the pun, in the same boat as you. So it's going to be a group of other people who don't drink, that are going there for the same reasons as you. So you already have that group that if you want to go and watch a show, do a quiz, go and enjoy the opera hour at the back of the ship was it 3:30 every day at the dock?
3:30, yes. There's not
Yeah.
a few Metsy in the
Oh,
afternoon.
it's really nice. Yeah. So if you want to do that, you've already got that kind of group, and obviously you can kind of join all the other groups and things like that. The trouble is, if you join, for example, the solo meetup group, which is fantastic, you don't know what those people are going to be like, as in they might be there for different reasons to you, without
Mm.
labeling people, whatever. So it's having that group and having that backup, that that you're with like-minded people. I think that's what people really love about the sober cruise.
Yeah, it's the choice, really. It's the choice to interact as much or as little as you like.
Yeah. So the sober cruise will be setting sail from Miami on the 2nd of May 2027, and 2 weeks later we'll be docking in Barcelona. So it's the 16th. Yep, 16th of
Hmm.
May 2027. There's people from all over the world. We people think it's because we're obviously from the UK and Europe, that it's mainly people from there, but Americans and things like that, Canadians, people from all over. The main thing is that we want people who are going there to enjoy themselves, in a safe environment. That's basically what we want.
Yeah, and of course, it's not just the cruises that you can help people book organize flights. And generally, what we would do is we would have a suggested hotel the night
Yeah.
before where people can stay, and so we'll organize transfers to the port, etc. Um, but it's yeah, and in terms of cost, can you give us an indication of the how much roughly it would be for a balcony cabin for 2 people?
So a balcony going for two people was about £2,300. So you get £1,150 per person, less than £100 per person per night. Well, less than that's probably £90 per person per night. And I know I can get through £90 worth of steak and Coke Zero. Uh,
Yes, I can vouch for that. Yes. Yeah. And
and
so,
we'd also have solo sea terrace cabins, as well. We can also do the solo inside cabins, and the inside cabins and sea view cabins. Just get in touch with us. Use the links below, or the sobercruise.co.uk, and we'll be able to sort of help you with the prices. But most people, I think, are go for the sea terrace cabins because they want to be able to sit out. And we have another podcast all about the cabins, so we won't sort of dive too much into it now. But I think most people go for the sea view. Sea
yeah,
view.
and just for comparison, would it be fair to say that that price of 2,300 is about 30% less than people would be paying for 1 week around the Med in July and August,
Yeah,
which
so
is
if you're
generally
going,
about 32?
yeah, if you're going July and August around the Med, you'll be looking at around the same kind of price. The other thing is that the flights to Barcelona for or the flight back from Barcelona would be more expensive in July and August.
Of course,
Like
yeah.
sometimes you're looking at sort of £200-300 for a flight to Barcelona from the UK. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
And even Ryanair can be really expensive. But the 16th, 17th of May, it's not school holidays or anything like that, so the prices are pretty good. It's not bank holiday or anything. And then going over to Miami again, if you want to go beforehand, it doesn't fall over any of their holidays or anything as well. So hotels in Miami around the cruise terminal, because there's cruises every day. It's the busiest port in the world. Are always around the same price because
Mm.
there are cruises every day that go out of it, so they don't fluctuate that much. Or if you've got a later flight in, just stay at the airport, because if you're landing at 7 o'clock, by the time you've gone through passport control and things at 8:30, pick up your luggage. If you've got luggage, you might as well just stay at the airport. The other thing is that from the airport to the cruise terminal, if you take a taxi, separate from doing it yourself, they have fixed rates.
Do they really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No.
So they have it's a fixed rate system from the airport to the cruise terminal. Whereas if you, as soon as you leave the airport bubble, which the hotels are classed as part of the bubble, they then go onto a meter and they could be anything. Whereas
Right.
it's fixed, and it's not particularly expensive. It's not particularly far, the airport to the cruise terminal, is it? It's not.
It's not, no, and just to I mean, the Ubers in Miami tend to be relatively good value. Just to give you an example, we recently went from Miami Beach to the airport, and I think we paid something like $35,
Yeah,
which is pretty good value.
yeah, yeah. So another kind of thing to think about. And again, we're gonna have hotels beforehand, so it's whether people want to stay for a few nights beforehand and enjoy Miami or other parts of the states, wherever. Or if you're coming from the states, then you probably fly down um, on the day or the day before. We'd always recommend the day beforehand, just in case your flight gets delayed or anything like that. But if you are flying in late, then yeah, probably the airport's just as good a place as any to stop.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes, so if any of this episode sounds familiar to anybody listening, give us a wee look on the website, www.thesobercruise.com, and you'll find lots more details there. So about the itinerary, the ship, the pricing, etc.
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm more than happy to help. If you've got any questions, either about the cruise itself, the transportation, or what the actual sober cruise is, what you're going to get, then get in touch with us and we'll be happy to chat. But for now, thank you very much, Mark. And everyone, thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks, Martin. Speak to you soon.
Excellent.